What's up, tube viewers? My name is Pax, and I'm speaking facts. And today, I'm here to talk to you guys about a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm back like scoliosis and halitosis, and today, I'm gonna react to the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife being captured in an early morning full-scale military assault on the country of Venezuela and being shipped out of the country under the cloak of night by our military to a forward operating base out at sea where they have been held captive pending further charges by the U.S. government. So we're going to go over here to Fox News and we're going to check out the content and see what's going on with the Attorney General of the United States of America, Pam Bondi, where she's going to update us and bring us up to speed on what's going on. You guys go over to Fox News and check out their content because they will keep you up to speed on the latest news and details that unfold around the world.
It is 8 a.m. on the East Coast, and if you are just waking up this morning, we are following breaking news. President Trump announcing the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro overnight in a large-scale U.S. military operation.
Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming Maduro and his wife have been indicted in New York on drug and weapons charges. The couple, quote, will soon face the full wrath of American justice.
And they do mean the full wrath of American justice, just to start to paint the picture of what's about to come against this couple. The United States of America is an unbridled machine. It answers to no other entity on the planet.
Comes after explosions rocked the capital of Caracas and surrounding states. Early this morning, President Trump is expected to hold a news conference from Mar-a-Lago at 11 a.m.
Lucas Tomlinson joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida, where the commander-in-chief has been spending the holidays. Hey, Lucas, what more can you tell us this morning?
Good morning, Doc. For weeks, President Trump had pledged there would be strikes ashore in Venezuela, and that's exactly what happened in the pre-dawn hours, where the National Mission Force Special Operations Forces were launched, likely from the USS Iwo Jima offshore, after the Air Department, the jets and helicopters on board had been moved to Puerto Rico.
So you're talking about a strike force that's just docked out at sea. They're just anchored out there chilling. You're talking about thousands of military personnel representing the United States of America. They've got the flag on their uniform, and they're ready. They're foaming out the mouth, and they have elite, best of the best from all branches of the U.S. military, and they're ready to go. And they go in there, and they mean business.
Those forces, the strike force, assaulted Maduro's compound in the pre-dawn hours after those airstrikes from U.S. military aircraft took place in Caracas around 2 in the morning, Caracas time, 1 in the morning, East Coast time. And President Trump posting to Truth Social after Maduro and his wife had left the country. I'll read it. The president posted, quote, "The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter."
DJT, look at the president of the United States right here, y'all. He's got the war paint of the American flag down his face. That says it all right there. Then he's got the U.S. military at his command. He's the commander-in-chief. And, you know, this is a checkmate move. Think about it in terms of chess. Checkmate, you got the king and the queen off the board in one fell swoop. This is a well-coordinated attack by the U.S. military. I'm proud to be an American. Let's go.
And we heard from Venezuela's leader just a day ago, guys, in a car, of a dash cam video saying he was open to a deal with President Trump. He said he would be open to combating the drug trafficking. Recall for many days now, there have been increased sanctions on Maduro's regime.
You didn't move quick enough, buddy.
regime had been called a cartel, had been sanctioned as a foreign terrorist organization. We'd seen dozens of strikes against drug boats in the Caribbean and in the Eastern Pacific. And then this morning at 2 in the morning, we saw these dramatic airstrikes, likely from F-22 fighter jets, stealth fighter jets. Also recall those F-35s that have been moved to Puerto Rico, likely taking part in the strikes. We saw B-1 bombers, a flight in the Caribbean just last evening. It's not clear if those also took place. We also, as you can see in the video coming up, dozens of U.S. Army helicopters, likely from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Those are the
Very nasty work, you guys. They have an aerial attack. They're assaulting from the air. They're using the water. You know, they're amphibious. They got frogmen coming in. You know, it does not matter. These guys are elite, high speed, fast moving, coordinated as one. And they are a strike force that is a force on this planet to be reckoned with. They mean business, and they are always victorious.
Night Stalkers, those are the world's most elite pilots that would have taken the strike force into Caracas to detain Nicolas Maduro. This appears from the American side to be bloodless. It appears all aircraft were able to successfully execute their mission, and all American military personnel, those elite Tier 1 forces from the Delta Force, the Ranger Regiment, and perhaps SEAL Team 6, all made it out of the country in one piece.
Shout out to the men and women of the U.S. military.
And let's not forget, this was a showdown between President Trump and Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. And as Elliot Abrams told me a few weeks ago, there can only be one winner, and President Trump doesn't like to lose. And that's what we saw in these strikes, guys.
So obviously for the past couple of weeks, Maduro has been looking out and seeing the most advanced flotilla in world history parked outside of his country.
The most advanced flotilla, collection of amphibious strike force personnel at sea, parked outside of your country, not your window, not your house, not your car, not your property, your entire country. There is a wall of military force parked outside of your country right now, and you don't make the right decision.
It's probably been a little bit nerve-wracking for him, but obviously the operation, this operation was successful and is over. But I don't think that we're necessarily going to see the USS Gerald Ford pull anchor and leave the region anytime soon.
The USS Gerald Ford is the largest, what do they call them? The aircraft carrier in the world, the most advanced and largest aircraft carrier in the world.
Doesn't appear that way, Charlie, although it is worth noting that Ford has been at sea for 6 months, deploying back in June. She was moved from Europe to move to the Caribbean, part of what the Trump administration has said repeatedly, and with this new national security strategy, that the focus would be on the Western Hemisphere. We saw in the new national security strategy that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth unveiled at the Reagan National Defense Forum. And you're right, we've seen this huge buildup of U.S. military forces in the Caribbean. The USS Gerald Ford Strike Group, not just the aircraft carrier and squadrons of F-18 Super Hornets, but also the USS Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group with thousands of Marines and, of course, dozens of attack helicopters. It's likely those Night Stalkers, the elite pilots that flew the strike force into Venezuela, were based aboard Iwo Jima. We also saw dozens of other warships in the region as well, armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles. And this buildup clearly had an impact on Nicolas Maduro. That's why in that interview, that's why we likely saw him almost pleading to the Trump administration for mercy. And perhaps this operation had been planned for a number of days. Remember, we had the strike in Nigeria targeting ISIS forces on Christmas Day. We've been hearing something was in the works for the past few days, and we hadn't seen President Trump on camera in the last few days. The last time we heard from him was New Year's Eve, Charlie, when a reporter asked him, "What's your goal for the new year?" And the president said peace, Charlie.
Lucas, with Maduro being gone, taken into U.S. custody by the DOJ, it leaves his vice president, who we've only heard from on state TV, saying that they wanted proof of life of Maduro and his wife. Have you gotten any more information on what is going on there? Do we have any indication of what is happening? Will there be a regime change?
Absolutely, there will be a regime change, and that vice president will not be the head of that country. Our country will decide who is going to be able to work diplomatically with the United States of America, who is going to go into business with our oil companies who are going to put billions of dollars into the Venezuelan infrastructure and rebuild it in order to pump oil, which is their probably number one resource coming out of that country. I'm just assuming, that's my opinion. And Donald J. Trump knows how to get things started. So he's going to make shit complete. He's going to make sure that whoever's put into power knows how to work diplomatically with other leaders around the world.
Well, President Maduro is no longer running the country, and that statement from the vice president of Venezuela confirmed what President Trump said about Maduro and his wife had been removed from the country. We did hear from President Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi. If you could pull up that statement on X, I can read that for our viewers. Pam Bondi wrote, quote,
"Hey, pretty thing.
Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts."
If we go to prison for the rest of our life, whoop-de-doo.
Because that's where you're going, buddy. Hey, listen, one thing about it, these are deplorable accusations. You do not want to have a supersede indictment that includes these type of charges against you and your wife. I'm sorry.
Now, it's notable, Doc, when you asked what comes next in Venezuela. Senior official who used to be posted at the Pentagon just told me recently that there are 25 to 50 Venezuelan generals that have bank accounts in excess of billions of dollars, not millions, but billions. You have to wonder if any kind of opposition leader like Maria Corina Machado were to come to the country, would those generals support her new leadership or whoever is designated by the Trump administration if they can make that happen in the country?
Well, you know, that's such a great point to raise, Lucas, whether or not these generals would trust someone like Maria Corina Machado, because the Cartel del Soles, Cartel of the Suns, is specifically named that because the epaulets, the sun-like shaped dressing on the generals' uniforms, that's where they got it. The reason why they were given that name is because the military is the cartel. That's what ultimately Nicolas Maduro is being indicted on in terms of running a cartel organization.
So you're the president of the country and you're running the cartel, buddy. So this should be no surprise that the American government has brought down the entire weight of its military force on you and your wife. And that in the middle of the night, they came in there and snatched you and her out of the bed and took you guys to a military ship in the middle of the ocean where you're currently being housed, by the way, in a Nike Tech sweatsuit. We saw that. Hey, man, you know, hey, listen.
Narco terrorists. You mentioned, though, Maria Corina Machado. Here's a little bit of what she had to say on Fox and Friends. Watch.
I completely trust the strategy President Trump is developing. and his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. They know very well with whom they're dealing with. This is not a legitimate president. This is the head of a criminal structure that was already defeated in a presidential election by landslide.
So you already got defeated in the land. So you bullied the people out of the election. You just stole the election and just kept yourself in power, huh?
So they know how to deal with these kind of individuals that are criminals, narco-terrorists, and I believe that Maduro will get a very clear picture of what are his options and what's the future for Venezuela.
What would be your message to Americans who are worried that this could become another costly foreign entanglement for them?
They had to sneak this woman out of the country. They had to go in with, I think it was maybe some Navy SEALs or something, and sneak this woman out of the country, dress her up she had to wear numerous disguises because she had to cross over numerous borders, international borders that were being guarded by other military personnel from foreign countries, and they were all looking for her, and they successfully got her out of the country, and she opposes Nicolas Maduro. She was recently, she was the most recent winner of the Nobel Peace Prize as well. So applause her for that.
I believe it's exactly the contrary. Maduro started this war. President Trump is ending this war. A transition to democracy in Venezuela will make the Americas, including the United States, safer, more secure, and more prosperous. Because Venezuela, our country, has been turned into that safe haven for all those enemies, forces that want to undermine the institutions of the United States and also kill people in Venezuela and in your country. So we are solving and dismantling a criminal structure that has produced great pain and turned our country, our nation, into the best ally of the United States, a security shield for the Americas, and a huge opportunity for energy security as well. And one thing very important, Rachel, millions of Venezuelan migrants will come back home the day Maduro goes.
Kudos to that. Millions of migrants will come back home now that this guy and his regime have been toppled. You know, also, she just mentioned a major natural resource to America, and I think that that's by way of oil. Also, you know, you have a country that has been shipping out thousands and thousands of metric tons of cocaine, which has decimated every community it touches in our U.S. borders.
So that's what Maria Corina Machado had to say back in November. Is it your sense, Lucas, that at this press conference in just a few hours at 11 a.m., that we may learn more about whether or not the Trump administration is putting its backing behind someone like Machado, or if there's another plan for the governance now without Maduro?
Recall, Griff, that the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, received about 80% of support inside the country. What officials have told me in the past is, unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, in Venezuela, it's a very united country, both politically and ethnically. You don't have Sunni, Shia, Druze, Kurds in Venezuela. It is one people, and they are pretty united. In fact, just a few minutes ago on social media, you've seen people start to take to the streets, yelling out of their apartments in Caracas. It sounds like many of the people in Caracas and in Venezuela are joyful today about Maduro being removed from office in this daring operation led by Special Operations Forces in the cover of night at about 2 a.m. this morning in Caracas. Certainly,
people are so the current citizens and residents of Caracas and the country around Venezuela are taken to the streets in celebration of this capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, who are the Venezuelan president of the country. They're celebrating it. They're not opposing this. They're not out there protesting America. They're celebrating his capture.
This is something we're going to wait to hear from President Trump. Clearly, the Trump administration has game planned this out. This was just one part of the operation. Now it goes into the political realm, and who is going to rule the country, and will these generals allow any opposition leader to do it, or perhaps one of these generals might take over?
That's a great point. Not only are they one people, they also have a history of free markets and free self-governance. Lucas Tomlinson, we'll check back in with you as things warrant.
Thanks, Lucas.
And in the next hour, we will be hearing from Senator Tom Cotton, who was briefed by Rubio earlier this morning, and he'll be joining us in the 9 a.m. hour. Let's bring in Brett Velikovich, Fox News contributor, drone expert, and president of Power US. Great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us this morning, fella. You know, we know you look, the look on your face says you about to unleash hell.
So first off, just big picture, what do you make of all of these developments this morning?
Well, hey, good morning. I think Maduro just discovered that the U.S. doesn't bluff when it comes to protecting our citizens. I mean, he needed to go. He and his regime were not just drug dealers, they were narco-terrorists.
I knew it.
And this was enforcement of the law against a dictator who was killing Americans for years, and deterrence for our country at the highest levels. And deterrence doesn't come from simply talk. It comes from bold, swift action like this. And what we just witnessed is Venezuela, you know, the collapse of a regime that survived for years on corruption, fear, terrorism. Maduro didn't just govern his country. He turned a once wealthy nation into a narco-terrorist state. He exported instability across the region, and he hid behind sovereignty while bleeding his own people dry. And I think the explosions last night are just the sounds of justice finally catching up to him and his cronies, who have starved their people while lining their pockets with drug money, illicit oil deals. You know, now the Venezuelan government knows the gig is up, right? His capture exposes the fragility of their house of cards, which was built on rigged elections, repression, and frankly, the Venezuelan people deserve, you know, better than breadlines and blackouts. And so hopefully with Maduro gone, there's finally hope for some democracy. And cheers to our administration, who just sent a clear message around the world. Criminal regimes that traffic drugs, destabilize the region, threaten U.S. interests, they're no longer untouchable. And so I really believe the proper amount of power was applied here, quickly, intelligently, and it's going to restore deterrence across our own hemisphere.
Yeah,
Absolutely it is. There is no way that there is a doubt to any other country around the world that America means business, and if you step too far out of line, hey, you could be next. And no matter what, no matter how you feel about this, I try to make a little bit of light of it, but we're sticking to the facts. No matter how you feel about this, you just heard how this man very eloquently and colorfully outlined in explicit detail what this man has been accused of doing for years to his own people and the resources of his country that he's utilizing in order to sustain and retain leadership of the country and a military presence where he's able to dominate civilians and rule by fear.
And Brett, with your obviously military background, you're well aware of what must have gone into this operation, which President Trump called brilliant in an interview early this morning with the New York Times. But it does appear that it was quite stunning, quite specific with precision. And it doesn't appear that any U.S. service member was injured or killed, or that the Venezuelan officials even responded.
They better not.
I'll tell you what, Maduro is lucky he was captured alive. It's very interesting we haven't heard about more resistance during this operation, which just tells me, you know, how easily this regime collapsed. Cheers to the president. Cheers to this administration. Marco Rubio, who no doubt was probably the architect behind a lot of this, because this appeared very deliberate and calculated of an operation. You had precision strikes, intelligence-driven operations that led up to this, which systematically stripped the regime of its ability to respond, its ability to communicate, control events on the ground. I don't think this was just shock and awe. This was meticulously planned. It was surgical pressure. By the time this decisive action arrived and occurred and they captured Maduro, his inner circle was already isolated. The command and control was probably fractured. This illusion of power, it just evaporated. And that's what modern enforcement looks like. It's not occupation. It's not nation building. We're collapsing a criminal regime, a criminal leadership, so that they have no options left. And clearly this involvement, this reported involvement of U.S. Special Operations Tier 1 forces, it underscores that this wasn't this brute force. It was a meticulous operation. You had quiet professionals operating with discipline, restraint, executing this mission flawlessly. And that's the difference between projecting strength as a nation and not recklessness. So the amount of precision, the amount of intelligence that goes into something like this, I can tell you is just incredible. And
Hey, we're going to leave it at that because that is poetically said. And I cannot say it any better. I was sitting here trying. I was thinking like double Dutch of a way to jump in there and just put the cherry on top. But you know what? I cannot say it any better than that. Shout out to Fox News and their coverage of the situation. It's not looking good for Nicolas Maduro, the former president of Venezuela, and his wife. They are going to meet the full wrath of the United States government soon. Hey, so stay tuned. We're likely to have more coverage of this. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And until next time, my name is Pax, and I'm just here to keep up with some of these facts. Y'all be good to yourselves and others out there. I'm out of here.